my dear students. How are you? I hope all are you good. Welcome back to another class. Today, let we start English chapter number 7, The Prisoners. Prisoners means कैदी जो होते हैं. There was not a sound in the forest save the indistinct fluttering sound of the snow falling on the trees. Before the door of the forester's dwelling, a young woman was chopping wood with a hatchet on a block of stone. She was tall, slender, strong, a true girl of the woods, daughter and wife of a forester. A voice called from within the house, "We are alone tonight, but then you must come in. It is getting dark, and there may be precious oboes around." "I have just finished, mother," replied the young woman, splitting as she spoke an immense log of wood with strong death's blow. "Here I am, there's no need to be afraid, it is quite light still." Her mother, a wrinkled old woman, whom age had reeled, time was spinning by the fireside. "I am uneasy," she said, "when your father's not here. Two women are not much good." "Oh," said the younger woman, "I had cheerfully kill a wolf or a Russian if it came to that." And she glanced at a heavy revolver hanging above the hearth. Her husband had been called upon to serve in the army at the beginning of the Russian invasion, and the two women had remained alone with the old father. A keeper named Nicholas Pichon sometime called Longlegs, who refused obstinately to leave his home and take refuge in the town. This town was rather an ancient stronghold built on a rock. Its inhabitants were patriotic and had made up their minds to resist the invaders and to fortify their native place. The people had bought cannon and rifles, organized a militia, and formed themselves into battalions, and now spend their time drilling all day long in the square. All bakers, grocers, butchers, lawyers, carpenters, booksellers, chemists took their turn at military training at regular hours of the day under the auspices of Monsieur Lavigny, a former non-commissioned officer. He had taken the rank of commanding officer in Redal, and seeing that all the young men had gone off to the war, he had enlisted all the others who were in favor of resisting an attack. Fat men now invariably walked the streets at a rapid pace to reduce their weight and improve their breathing, and weak men carried weights to strengthen their muscles. Longlegs' dwelling served as an outpost in the Avalon forest. Twice a week, the old men went to the town for provisions and brought the citizens news of the outlying district. On this particular day, he had gone to announce the fact that a small detachment of German infantry had halted at his house the day before and had left again almost immediately. When the old man set out like this, he took with him his dogs as a safeguard against wolves, which were beginning to get fires, and he left directions with the two women to barricade themselves securely within their dwelling as soon as night fell. But I was hanging her pot over the fire to warm the soup when he suddenly stood still, listening attentively to a sound that had reached up through the chimney. "There are people walking in the wood," he said, "7 or 8 men at least." The terrified old woman stopped her spinning wheel and gasped, "Oh my God, and your father not here!" She said, scarcely finished speaking when a succession of violent blows shook the door. As the woman made no reply, a loud guttural voices shouted, "Open the door." After a brief silence, the same voice repeated, "Okay, open the door or I will break it down. अगर आप नहीं खोलोगे तो हम इसको तोड़ दें." Bardine took the heavy revolver from its hook, slipped it into the pocket of her skirt, and putting her ear to the door, asked, "Who are you?" demanded the young woman. "What do you want?" "The detachment that came here the other day," replied the voice. "My man and I have lost our way in the forest since morning. Open the door or I will break it down." The forester's daughter had no choice. She shot back the heavy bolts to open the ponderous shutter and received in the wan light of the snow 6 men, 6 Prussian soldiers, the same who had visited the house the day before. "I'm quite alone with my mother this evening," said Berthai. "Never mind," replied the soldier, who seemed a decent sort of fellow. "If we want to do you and any harm, but you must give us something to eat. We are nearly dead with hunger and fatigue." Then the girl moved aside. "Come, miss," she said. The young woman pointed to the wooden benches on either side of the last table. "Sit down," she said, "and I'll make you some soup. You certainly look tired out, and no mistake." The 6 men watched the movements with hungry eyes. They had placed their rifles in a corner and waited for supper, was well behaved as children on a school bench. Food was served, and the men devoured their meal voraciously. The forester's daughter then went down to the cellar to draw them some cider. She was gone some time. The cellar was small, with an arched ceiling, and had served to soup. So people said both his prison and his hiding place during the revolution. It was approached by means of a narrow, winding staircase closed by a trap door at the farther end of the kitchen. When Bertine returned, she was smiling mysteriously to herself. She gave the Germans her jug of cider. Bertine said to the officer, "Go and lie down, all of you, round the fire. There's lot of room for 6. I'm going up to my room with my mother." And the 2 women went upstairs. They could be heard locking the door and walking about overhead for a time. Then they were silent. The Prussians lay down on the floor with their feet to the fire and their hats resting on their rolled up cloaks. Soon all 6 snored loudly. They had been sleeping for some time when a shot rang out so loudly that it seemed directed against the very walls of the house. The soldiers rose hastily. 2, then 3 more shots were fired. The door opened hastily, and Bardine appeared barefooted and only half dressed, with her candle in her hand and a scared look on her face. "They are the French," she stammered, "at least 200 of them. If they find you here, they will burn the house down. For God's sakes, hurry down into the cellar and don't make a sound whatever you do. If you make any noise, we are lost." We will go, replied the terrified officer. "Which is the way?" The young woman really raised the small square trap door, and the 6 men disappeared one after another down the narrow, winding staircase, feeling their way as they went. But as soon as the spike of the last helmet was out of sight, Bertine lowered the heavy oaken lid, thick as a well, hard steel, furnished with the hinges and bolts of a prison's head. Shot the 2 heavy bolts and began to laugh long and silently, possessed with a mad longing to dance above the heads of her prisoners. Bertine lighted her fire again, hung the pot over it, and prepared more soup, saying to herself, "Father will be tired tonight." Soon the Prussians were beginning to suspect the trick she had played them, and presently the officer came up the narrow staircase and knocked at the trap door. "Open the door," he cried. "I won't do any such thing." "Open it or I will break it down," shouted the man angrily. She laughed. The forester's daughter heard him go down the stairs again. Then the soldiers came one after another and tried their strength against the trapdoor and found their efforts useless. They all returned to the cellar and began to talk among themselves. The young woman heard them for a short time, and then she rose, opened the door of the house, looked out into the light, and listened. A sound of distant barking reached her ear. She whistled just as huntsman would, and almost immediately 2 great dogs emerged from the darkness and bounded to her side. She held them tight and shouted at the top of her voice, "Hullo, father!" A voice replied, "Hullo, Bertine! "Don't go in front of the vent hole," shouted his daughter. "There are Prussians in the cellar." She told the story of how she had alarmed them by firing the revolver and had shut them up in the cellar. The man, still serious, asked, "But what am I to do with them at this time of night?" "Go and fetch Monsieur Lavigny with his men." She replied, "He will take them prisoners. He will be delighted." Her father smiled. "Here's some soup for you," said his daughter. "Eat it quick and they'll be off." Longlegs sat off a quarter of an hour later and Bertine, with her head between her hands, picked it. At last, the clock marked the moment she had fixed on for their arrival, and she opened the door to listen for their approach. She perceived a shadow from creeping towards the house. She was afraid and cried out, but it was her father. "They have sent me," he said, "to see if there is any change in the state of affairs." "No one." And he gave a shrill whistle. Soon a dark mass loomed up under the trees. The advance guard, composed of 10 men. "Don't go in front of the vent hole," repeated Longlegs at intervals, and the first arrivals pointed out the much dreaded vent hole to those who came after. At last the main body of the troop alight. In all 200 men, each carrying 200 cartridge. Monsieur Lavigny, in a state of intense excitement, posted them in such a fashion as to surround the whole house, save for a large space left vacant in front of the little bowl on a level with the ground, through which the cellar derived its supply of air. Monsieur Lavigny struck the trap door below with his foot and called, "I wish to speak to the Prussian officer." The German did not reply. The Prussian officer again shouted the commandant. Still no response. For the space of 20 minutes, Monsieur Lavigny called on the silent officer to surrender with bag and baggage, promising him that all life should be spared and that he and his men should be accorded military honors. But he could extort no sign either of consent or of defiance. Monsieur Lavigny had formed his plan of attack. He called in a loud voice, "I want Planchet the plumber and his boatman." 3 men approached and they brought the commandant 30 yards of pikes. Next, with infinite precaution, he had a small round bolt drill in the trap door, then making a conduit with the tross from the pump to this opening, he said with an air of extreme satisfaction, "Now we will give these German gentlemen something to drink." A shout of frizzled admiration mingled with uproarious laughter burst from his followers. Then he commanded pump. And the pump handle having been set in motion, a stream of water trickled throughout the length of the piping and flowed from step to step down the cellar stairs with a gentle gurgling sound. They waited and are passed in 2, then 3. The enemy was astir now. They could be heard moving the cask about, talking, splashing through the water. Then about 8 o'clock in the morning, a voice came from the vent hole. "I want to speak to the French officer." Lavigny replied from the window, taking care not to put his head out for, "Do you surrender?" "I surrender." "Then put your rifles outside." A rifle immediately protruded from the hole and fell into the snow, then another and another until all were disposed of, and the voice which had spoken before said, "I have no more, be quick and drawn, stop pumping," ordered the commandant, and the pump handle hung motionless. Then, having filled the kitchen with armed and waiting soldiers, he slowly raised the oaken trap door. One after another, the 6 Germans emerged, scared, shivering, and dripping from head to foot. They were seized and bound. That as the French feared a surprise, they set off at once. They made a triumphal entry into Redel. Monsieur Lavigny was decorated as a reward for having captured a Prussian advance guard, but Bertine and her father received bravery award with cash. So everyone, this chapter is in here. I hope you all are very well understood full chapter. So we will meet to the next class. Thank you everybody.